Story 1. Giving birth. As a woman, I don't know how the rest of you do it. The idea scares me. Much respect to those who aren't afraid of it. Story 2. Your heart beats continuously without any days off for decades. What if it just gets tired one day? Story 3. How our entire world is governed by a currency we created. Realistically, you can almost purchase your way through anything. Story 4. The fact that we have relationships with other species, although we communicate differently, is both strange and fascinating. Story 5. Mannequins. I know they are just plastic, but something about their blank faces and stiff poses gives me the creeps, especially in dim lighting. Story 6. Being in a place outside of your normal routine and suddenly reflecting on how random choices led you to that moment. Story 7. Having dreams, like in sleep, and seeing things, people, and places you have never been to or met. Story 8. War. Many companies profit from participating in war. It's just good business. Story 9. Using non-triggering phrases for words like suicide or rape in YouTube videos. I always thought that saying someone ended their life or was assaulted to please a YouTube algorithm, which is a non-sentient being, to avoid having their video flagged and removed from distribution is a very unsettling thing. It's like people self-censor to please a few lines of computer code on a website. It really disturbs me. Not using those words also devalues the seriousness of the victims who have suffered from those real-world tragedies in the first place. Instead of gun, for some reason, it's pop now. If a family member of mine were murdered by someone with a gun and someone said that the person I love was popped, I would be very angry. I feel like those non-triggering words are worse than the actual terms themselves. All just to please computers. It's really unsettling to me. I just received an automated warning from Reddit for one of the words I used in a now automatically deleted comment below. The irony here is astounding. This is truly disturbing. Story 10. Being pregnant, with a whole human growing inside someone, is a unique experience. I have 2 children and was quite young when I had them. However, being in a room with a pregnant woman feels strange, as if there is another person in there, just floating and developing. Story 11. We become strangers to people we were once close to, forgetting how they look. It haunts me that I can't remember the faces of those I have been friends with or even shared intimate moments with before. Story 12. Mine is kind of odd. I was in my 40s before I realized what it was, and I still can't completely identify it. It mostly involves people in costumes, which makes me uncomfortable. Sometimes, when it's really bad, it feels like getting a chill. I don't attend plays, costume parties, or similar events. Uniforms aren't as bad, but they still feel a bit unsettling. Clowns, mascots, or anything like that are a definite no for me. Story 13. Everyone uses the restroom. Everyone has unpleasant bowel movements, and this is normal. I often think about this in business or formal settings. It makes me uncomfortable when shaking someone's hand. Story 14. Turning on my furnace for the first time each autumn makes me irrationally concerned that something broke over the summer, which will cause the entire system to malfunction. Story 15. Alligators are ancient reptiles that have survived since the time of the dinosaurs. People sometimes swim with them and occasionally keep them as pets. Story 16. Pregnancy. It's overwhelming on every level. I find it hard to understand why anyone would choose to experience it. When I see a large pregnant belly or hear about kicks or movements from inside, I start to feel dizzy. Not to mention how drastically it affects the body during and after the experience. Story 17. We wake up, we work, we go home, we sleep, and we repeat. Isn't there anything else on this earth we can do that is not working to death by a construct we created and can dismantle but won't? Story 18. Death, and especially murder, is disturbingly normalized in society. For instance, when a content creator covers a murder, they often neglect to discuss the victim's family or consider how we can support them. Instead, the topic is treated as mere trivia. What is even worse than the content creator and their video is the comment section. Why? Because the discussion rarely centers on the video's subject. Instead, it's filled with comments like, "Another great day because," insert content creator, uploaded. Another point of concern is the normalization of death. I am generally okay with various cases of death being reported. However, my issue lies with self-sacrifices. They have become such a common trope that few realize the magnitude of what self-sacrifice truly means. Once you die, that's it. It's over. From the perspective of someone who does not believe in an afterlife, your existence is simply gone. Yet, people tend to move on from such significant events far too quickly. Very few self-sacrifices receive the respect they deserve. Story 19. How incredibly complex our bodies are, and for most of us, they work quite well for the majority of our lives. However, there are diseases and conditions that some people face while others do not. It truly amazes me if I dwell on it for too long. Story 20. When someone knocks on the door and I'm not expecting anyone, I find myself questioning my entire existence and hiding as if I were in a horror movie. Story 21. Massages. I don't want people rubbing their hands all over me, no matter how good it is supposed to feel, especially foot massages. I become upset when someone tries to touch my feet. Story 22. I had a dream the other night that made me really sad. I was at a Christmas party at a local bowling alley. I was having fun and stepped outside for a minute. All of a sudden, everyone left, and my friend who died 10 years ago came up to me and said he had to show me something. We walked back into the bowling alley, and it was completely transformed with Christmas decorations, looking amazing. As I came through the door, I saw my mom, who passed away 4 years ago, and she looked beautiful and healthy. I started crying because I couldn't believe it and said, "Oh my God, Mom, I've missed you so much. Wait, am I dead?" She looked sad for a second and then smiled, saying, "Yes, but it will be okay." At that moment, my body sprang up, but I experienced sleep paralysis for a couple of seconds and couldn't move. After that, I just started crying. Story 23. Genitals remind me constantly that I am here to engage in reproduction, to bear children, and that I am ultimately just a piece of flesh. Story 24. How Earth is perfectly placed in our solar system to sustain life. A little too close to the sun, a slight change in our atmosphere, and existence on Earth could vanish. Story 25. Anesthesia allows doctors to put you in a state of unconsciousness, perform surgery, and you won't feel anything. It's truly remarkable. Story 26. Giving birth has been a topic of conversation between my husband and me lately, and it turns out he really does want kids. The thought of carrying a baby and going through the process of childbirth completely freaks me out. I think it would be fair for both parents to share the responsibility equally. Story 27. People will judge you and may try to hurt or oppress you based on the genitals you possess and whether you engage in sexual or romantic activities with another person who has those same genitals. Story 28. Just before I started 4th grade, my mom took me to the mall for clothes shopping. I got a bit nervous using the downward escalator and missed my chance to place my foot on it. The escalator proceeded to drag one of my feet out far enough to make me fall right on my back and bang my head. I wasn't injured, just mostly shaken up, but ever since then, I have been slightly scared of getting on a downward escalator, even more than 20 years later. I can go up without any problem, but I struggle with going down. No matter how many times I successfully use one, my fear has never lessened. Story 29. People see themselves as greater than everything else, as if we are not animals who cover ourselves with clothing. The one absolute constant among all humans is that we are all vulnerable, even when dressed. Story 30. Eating in public makes me anxious and nauseous. I have felt this way my entire life, and I cannot explain why. Story 31. How is something as harmful and poisonous as alcohol so integral to culture and many people's core identities? The fact that some individuals cannot socialize or even function normally without it is both terrifying and somewhat sad. Story 32. Every person in the world has approximately 1.5 million mites crawling on their skin. Mites are part of the arachnid family and are related to scorpions and spiders. Story 33. Someone is blowing out the candles on a birthday cake. Would you eat anything else that someone blew all over? Story 34. Public restrooms can be uncomfortable. You find yourself sitting next to a stranger, who can hear and smell everything happening in that moment. Story 35. I am old enough to be an American who believes that school shootings, especially in elementary schools, should be a much bigger deal than the government seems to think. It feels like living in a Twilight Zone episode. Story 36. Long, winding mountain roads. I can see the tires are on the road, absolutely not going off the edge. There are some beautiful mountains, but it gives me the same jolt of fright as going up a roller coaster. Story 37. Phone calls. I have a hard time with phone calls. I would rather send 100 emails than have one 5-minute phone conversation. Story 38. Shaking hands. I don't want to touch your clammy, germ-infested hand. I see too many people skip hand washing after using the toilet. Can't we just nod or kick each other in the shins instead? Story 39. That anything exists at all. Why is there a universe? I don't mean, well, scientifically this happened. Why? What is the reason for it beyond science? Why is there anything? Then my mind wanders off into a spine-chilling freak-out mode. After that, I eat some toast or something and just forget for a bit. Story 40. The concept of time is intriguing. You can never return to your childhood, not even for a moment. You do not know when or how you will die. Once you are gone from this earth, you are likely to be entirely forgotten within a century. A century is insignificant in the history of the earth, and even more so in the history of humanity. It is difficult for anyone to grasp how inconsequential one can feel, especially within our current understanding of the universe. Story 41. Electricity. I think it's a healthy fear. I know enough to replace an existing light fixture. I will never take risks with anything that involves moving or adding where studs or drywall could be a concern. Story 42. Sleep. It's funny because I say I dislike being awake and I love napping, but in reality I don't usually sleep when I'm napping. I just lie there and let my mind rest. The actual concept of sleep is so strange to me, and it always has been. Some time of day, and then suddenly it's another time, and it's not like you skipped through time, but you were completely unaware of time passing. Not to mention dreaming. Even waking up from a vivid dream, the memory of actually being in it fades quickly. During a dream, it feels like it's really happening, and that happens to us every night, yet we just don't remember the feeling. Sleeping truly unsettles me. Lately, I've been using a meditation application to help me sleep, and it's been effective because I've been falling asleep in less than 10 minutes. However, it's also frightening because every time I open it, I know I will most likely be completely unaware of the physical world in less than 10 minutes. Story 43. Capitalism is a game where everyone is losing slowly, except for a handful of individuals at the top. Story 44. Driving is still somewhat scary to me. We are all comfortable going around 70 to 80 miles per hour, surrounded by other people traveling at similar speeds in small, heavy metal vehicles. Story 45. We still do not know what a lot of our DNA actually codes for. We can easily translate the sections that code for protein production, and even a Year 12 biology student can do that with a codon table. However, we have no clue what most of the non-coding sections are for. We can read the language of life itself, but every coherent sentence is separated by pages of unrelated content. Story 46. Sitting down in a chair after someone has used it makes the chair feel warm. I dislike feeling another person's body heat in a chair. Story 47. It's so normalized to have everything figured out by age 18, to choose a major and a career, and to be labeled as that for the rest of your life. Is working until you die the only option, or at least until you can no longer function like you could in your 20s? What's the point of retirement if I physically can't do the things I used to? I can't travel and walk over 30,000 steps anymore. Maybe you still can, but you might not be as fit. I hope you understand what I mean. Story 48. I am a person. I don't know how to explain it, but I sometimes think, oh my God, I am actually a person with thoughts, and I am this specific person. It is just so bizarre to me that I am alive. Story 49. Breastfeeding. I delayed having children because it made me uncomfortable. I believed it was the only way to feed a baby for up to 2 years. It turns out I had other reasons for not being able to breastfeed, and both my children were formula fed. They are of average weight and height and are both very intelligent. Don't let the vague they frighten you. Fed is best. Not wanting to breastfeed without a medical reason is also a valid choice. Fed is best. Story 50. Adults who believe that God and the Bible are real. I remember the moment it dawned on me that the people around me, all the individuals at my childhood best friend's church one Sunday morning, genuinely believed that these Bible stories legitimately and seriously happened in real life. They actually think that the Adam and Eve story is how humans began. It blew my mind. The absurdity of it, along with all the contradictions in science, really bothered me as a child who disliked being made a fool or having people disagree with logic. Now that I'm older, I understand how powerful indoctrination can be, and I remind myself that there are different kinds of intelligence. It's easier for me not to be so judgmental most of the time, but truly, it feels strange to watch chanting, group singing, and hands in the air. It gives me the heebie-jeebies. Story 51. Social media. The world has become demonstrably worse by giving a platform to the fringes of society, yet we still celebrate social media as if it is a great achievement. I preferred it when being an outlier did not automatically grant you a voice without earning it. Story 52. I dislike the edge of paper. I know rationally that paper cuts aren't severe, especially after applying cream. However, I really dislike being near paper, especially when it is flapping around. I work in a preschool. Please help me. Story 53. Trash day. Driving around and seeing every house with a full trash bin makes me realize that every house produces that much waste in a week in every city on Earth. Where does it all go? Story 54. Why do we trust escalators so much? They are basically stairs that have given up on life. Every time I step on one, I half expect it to start a motivational speech about following your dreams. Story 55. Having a child is a complex process. Sharing DNA with someone, giving birth to a human, and watching them grow can be overwhelming. There's a lot to take in. Story 56. Driving at high speeds in heavy machinery while relying on strangers to operate their own hazardous equipment while texting is alarming. Story 57. The fact that we carry large, long sausage-like organs in our bodies, and one slice could cause them all to spill out, horrifies me every time I think about it. Story 58. Periods are something I find gross and embarrassing. I have only experienced around 10 in my whole life because I went on the depot injection at a young age to avoid them. Aside from my mom, who I spoke to when I had my first couple, I've never casually told anyone, not a partner, a female friend, or anyone else, that I'm on my period. I'm not sure why I feel this way. My mom talked about them openly when I was a teenager. It wasn't taboo in our house. Now, at 30 years old, I feel embarrassed buying feminine products, so I always use the self-service checkout. I'm not squeamish about blood or anything graphic. I just dislike the idea of it coming from that part of my body. Story 59. Eating meat is a common practice, especially in large quantities. About 70% of the Earth's biomass consists of animals raised for slaughter, while only 4% comprises all wild animals combined. Story 60. Why do some customers harass female retail workers, thinking they will have a sexually charged encounter? I had to quit on my first day at a thrift store because an older customer pretended to be Christian and told me a fabricated sob story about his daughter. He wanted to know my real name and get my cell phone number. The man pulled the "it's fate" line while preaching that the Christian God put him in the store to have me date him. He was in his 50s, tall, and although he was bald, he wore a crocodile skin sombrero. No child was near him. It was just him at the time. Story 61. In my city, people ride electric bikes and electric scooters on the sidewalk all the time, and I wonder how this is normal. How are they not hitting pedestrians constantly? It drives me insane and freaks me out. Story 62. Driving a large car on the street can make me feel anxious, especially when I see someone driving next to me. I worry about the possibility of an accident involving another vehicle. Story 63. Cars can be nerve-wracking. I had to go to therapy for my anxiety while driving. Eventually, I overcame it, though I still feel nervous sometimes. It's crazy how those vehicles are a normal mode of transportation for people, at least where I'm from. Story 64. The fact that we all experience time at different rates is fascinating. We have clocks to help manage this, but sometimes you need to pause and recognize how differently others perceive time. For instance, when catching up with a friend after some separation, it may feel like ages have passed. However, they might remind you, "What? That was only 3 months ago." This can lead to a realization of how distorted your own view of time can be based on the events and experiences that occurred during that period. Story 65. It is distressingly easy for babies to die. I have witnessed situations where parents were present in the room, called emergency services immediately, and followed the guidelines for safe sleep, yet tragedy still occurred. Factors such as the soft spot on a baby's head, positional asphyxiation in car seats and carriers, the use of outdated playpens, and even mild fevers can pose significant risks. Additionally, water safety is critical. A baby can turn their head in the bathtub when you are not paying attention, and it can lead to a tragic outcome. The margin for error is extremely small. Story 66. Pregnancy is the idea that something is growing inside your body. I find the concept unsettling, and pregnant bellies make me uncomfortable. Story 67. Religion and spirituality, such as crystals, burning sage, acupuncture, and horoscopes, often captivate many individuals. I believe my mind is unique in that I am not easily influenced by these concepts, making it difficult for me to witness others becoming absorbed in them. Story 68. Sugar is present in many foods. Why? Diabetes is a serious condition that can have devastating effects on your health. Food corporations want you to become dependent on their products, adding excessive amounts of sugar to their offerings for profit, and many people appear unconcerned about it. Story 69. You really can't tell what the other person is feeling, no matter what they say. With you, they can be kind and caring, but it turns out they have been lying to you the whole time you're together. That's so messed up, right? Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.